Blast off. Sorry for folks who are joining. We had a little countdown before we started. It was very exciting, very tense, but we're here now. Hello and welcome. And this is the Community Working Group panel. We have myself, George Demet, Mike Anello. Mike, you want to say hi? Hi. Jordana Fung. Say hi,
Hi.
Jordana. And Alex Burrows.
Uh,
So, jumping right in. So the mission of the Community Working Group, this is our official mission statement, is to foster a friendly and welcoming community for the Drupal project and to uphold the Drupal Code of Conduct. And I'll talk a little bit more about the different ways that we do that in some forthcoming slides. Before that, we've all said hi, but once again, just to introduce the four of us, we are the core conflict resolution team. So the idea is that if there is an incident report that's made to the community working group where someone is having a kind of an intractable conflict with another member of the Drupal community, whether they are have experienced or observed behavior that violates our code of conduct, they file a report on Drupal.org, or they can reach out to one of the four of us here. And we are the only ones who, have access to that report. We review what has been provided, and we go through the conflict resolution process. So you can see I am the sole member of the group who has been around basically since its inception. I joined in March 2013. I have been chair since 2016. And another kind of big announcement that I'm going to make here today is that I am planning to roll off this group in not too long. We're talking about succession planning around the end of the year. It has been a real tremendous honor and privilege to be on this group, but I have been on this group a very, very long time, and it is time to sort of make way for new leadership, which means, of course, that we are also looking to add folks to this team. And and I'll continue to be around just because I do have so much institutional knowledge. I think that folks are going to, ask us, so who was that person? We had that issue with 5 years ago or whatever, and I will, probably remember that. And then we got Mike, who joined in December 2015. So he's not quite as long tenured as me, but been there a while. Jordana joined in 2017, and then Alex is our newbie. Only been on the group for 2 years, still learning the ropes, which I think is honestly like one of the reasons we have in our charter, we have 3-year terms for folks who serve on this team. And part of the reason for that is it really does take about a year to really get up to speed with all the different issues and what's going on. We also frequently deal with issues that may take place over a period of months or even years. And so having that sort of consistency and longevity on this team is very important. So we have there's a review panel which basically provides oversight and governance for our group, and that panel consists of the 2 community elected members of the Drupal Association board, as well as an outside representative, someone from who's not a part of the Drupal community per se, but is very active and involved in other open source projects. So right now our review panel is Leslie Glynn and Pedro Cambra, and the The outside representative is John O'Bacon, who's been a community manager for a lot of open source projects. He's also written books on the subject. He's kind of an all-star in open source community management. So we're really privileged to have these folks. What they're responsible for are anytime a new member is added to the conflict resolution team, they need to be approved by this panel. This panel also exists in the case if there is an issue that either the core team, the four of us, either feel we need some assistance with. If there's an appeal made by a community member who doesn't like the decision we made, that is reviewed by this review panel. And so they're the folks who provide our governance and oversight. And because two of them are community elected, there is some element of sort of community accountability there. They can also, they can also kick one of us off at any time if we're not doing our job. So there is that accountability there. So as sort of the overall governance structure of the community working group appears, so we've talked about in the middle, we've got that, community working group conflict resolution team, and we've talked about the review panel, and the review panel ultimately answers to the Drupal Association Board of Directors. We'll be talking a little bit about, in more detail, about the community health team, who they are and what they do. This is something new we've added in about the last year or so. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about that subject matter experts. So these are folks who may or may not be part of the community health team, who we might bring in if there is an issue that comes up that requires some sort of, expertise in either a particular, area relating to the conflict. Maybe there's a cultural issue at play, and so we might look for somebody who understands the different cultural nuances at play. We've also brought in subject matter experts to help us with things like a community member for whom English is not their primary language. And so we might bring someone in who is fluent in that language to help, make sure that there's no nuance being lost in the communication. And so those folks, to be clear, are brought in, we bring them in very carefully. And if there's information about the issue that's going to be shared, we make sure folks are aware of that, that everyone is cool with it beforehand. We don't just go sharing details of issues willy-nilly. So one of the things you'll see in the little brackets on the right, bound by the CWG Code of Ethics. So in addition to the Community Code of Conduct that everyone in the community is bound by, as well as following our values and principles, we also have an additional code of ethics that kind of goes into some details about confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and other issues that one might run into, and makes it clear that there's for folks on, if you are working with a community working group, that there is sort of a higher sort of standard expected based on the kind of work and the kind of information, the kind of issues that you deal with. So I'm going to take a pause here. If anyone has any questions, we have, I believe the live Q&A is what we're using for this. And then we'll be monitoring that. And then if there's things that come up, either we can answer them during a pause, or we'll certainly have time at the end where we can answer questions. So I'm going to pause right now and ask if there is anything so far that's come in through the chat, or if anyone else on the panel has anything they want to add.
The only thing I wanted to add is on the bottom of each slide is our page where the information for the community working group lives. If you'd like some more information there or would like to contact us, that's the place to go to. But yeah.
Yeah. And that's all been recently updated too. So we were running on some pretty old versions of our copy for a while, but yeah, I will also kind of add the context that, for folks who might be, have familiarity with the CWG from its long history, we actually put in place a new charter about 2 years ago. Previously, in its original incarnation, the CWG, the conflict resolution team, had been chartered and operated under the authority of Dries as project lead. It became pretty clear that that situation was not sustainable. It wasn't really working well for anyone involved or the community, and so a couple of years ago, we went through a process where we've spent about a year rewriting our charter. So that we are now, it's kind of this unique situation. We are under the sort of governance and legal umbrella of the Drupal Association, but we operate largely independently of the association. Though as we get into the community health team, you'll see that we also work very closely with the association on proactive matters relating to community health. So it's a fairly unique structure, one that I haven't seen in any other open source projects, one that I'm looking forward to talking about with folks from other open source projects, because I think we've done a pretty good job of balancing the various different concerns and issues that come up as an open source project that isn't primarily sponsored by a single company or organization, right? So I've talked with folks from other open source projects who, might be run by Google or Facebook or whatever, and if they have issues or concerns, it ends up oftentimes becoming an HR matter within that organization. We don't have that in Drupal. We're a volunteer community, and so having a different kind of governance structure is, I think, really important for uh, these kinds of things. So,
Balancing
balance.
transparency, accountability, and neutrality. So try to be neutral in our decision making and trying to figure out things.
Yep, exactly. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the community health team, but then I actually want to get other folks on this panel to talk about the community health team as well. This is a new group that we formed, like I said, about a year ago, and this group is entirely focused on proactive community health measures. One of the things that we realized over the course of our history as a group is that the work of code of conduct enforcement and conflict resolution was fairly different and distinct from the work to proactively support community health. And as we have gone through and seen issues come up again and again, we recognize that there were kind of some systemic issues and root causes that needed to be addressed, but that our group didn't have the bandwidth to address them. So that's why we created the community health team. And so the community health team, and you can see the different folks we have, on the group, and the whole goal is to take those things that are not something that the four of us could do, that really require more community involvement and engagement, and additional stakeholders and everything, and have a team that's dedicated to working on those things. And to be clear, the community health team does not, when you file an issue, that doesn't go to this larger team. That only goes to the four of us. This group is not involved in conflict resolution. This group is not involved in code of conduct issues. But the kind of thing they might be involved in is if we come to them and say, hey, we're seeing a lot of issues that are coming up, in the issue queues that could easily be addressed if we had some, pre-written language to help people that people could just put in to sort of diffuse issues before they blew up into something that we had to deal with. And so that's an example of the kind of initiative we're working on initiatives to help improve codes of conduct and code of conduct enforcement standards for Drupal events, which is where a lot of the issues that we see arise. It's been interesting to see over the last year as everything has gone virtual, the sort of issues that we see more of and the kind of issues that we see a lot less of. And what I will say, speaking personally, is that the lack of after parties has actually reduced a lot of our caseload over the last year or so. So that's just something to consider as we go back to getting together in person again. So I'm going to take a pause here. Mike or Jordana, Alex, either of you want to talk a little bit more about the community health team and who they are and what they do?
Yeah, I'll jump in for a minute. I think the various areas that we decided to focus on with the community health team, these are all a direct result of areas where we had ideas on programs and things that we can add. Just looking at the community event support, I mean, we had been talking about for a long time how that we should, be providing and maintaining a code of conduct template for, Drupal camps and a playbook. And these are things that we've been able to produce, and now April is good enough to help us maintain and expand them. So all of these things, whether they're the subject matter experts or the various ambassadors, these are all things that we've had on our back burner for, in some cases, literally years, saying, oh, I wish we had time to do X. And when we decided to form this community health team, we basically just went through that and said, okay, well, we need someone who can focus on this, or some people, usually more than one person who can focus on this stuff and that stuff. So this is not organization without tasks. This is more tasks that needed an organization. So that's how we came up with this. And we have additional ideas, and we're always looking for more people to grow the numbers on this team. It's a great way to contribute back to Drupal without, looking at one character of PHP.
And one thing I want to add as well, and Amy June has actually been very good at making sure that everyone gets contribution credits for participating on the team and attending meetings and everything. And so, this is, if you are one of those folks, it's like, I don't code, but I care a lot about the community, and I'm looking for something to do. Please let us know. We're absolutely.
And the other thing,
Anyone else?
I'm going to throw in one other thing before I mute myself again. We are unfortunately, majority U.S. Folks here. So we are definitely, looking to expand our numbers specifically outside the United States. So if you are interested, or if you know someone who might be interested, please send them our way, because we know that is a deficiency in our group right now that we are trying very hard to address.
So opening up the CWG with the community health theme, it helps also for people that have some capacity to do things, but not necessarily a lot of capacity all the time. So whenever you have availability to help, there is a community health team where you can be active whenever you can, because we know, people are busy. There's a lot to do. So this is a way to participate and help without having to maybe be as dedicated as we need for example, for the core team, the core conflict resolution team. I'm sorry. So there are definitely ways to contribute and help within the CWG and the community health team that weren't there before. So please do reach out if you are interested. Thanks.
we've just created a Slack channel recently.
Yes.
Was it Drupal community hyphen health on Slack? So you can talk to us all directly on there. These teams also, we all meet once a monthly meeting where we'll all have a set agenda, and we go through it, discussing all the various aspects. And then outside of that item in the month, we'll have other meetings. So example is the community health team have a meeting every Monday to talk about the nudges, which is an interesting idea, to make the issue queue a lot friendlier, because there is some parts on the issue queue that can become unfriendly, and we don't want to put new people in the Drupal community or outside the community coming to Drupal, seeing how potentially this could be an upsetting aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we'll dig into that, but I think that Alex absolutely does speak to the sort of creating a more welcoming community for the Drupal project as being part of our charter, and this team as being one of the ways that we achieve that. I think there's in any community, right? Folks know each other, and uh, people who are familiar with each other may sometimes engage with each other in ways that are not always understandable or welcoming to outsiders, and then sometimes you just have folks who don't get along, right, and who take out those frustrations in different community spaces. And so when those things happen, it can become a conflict resolution issue or a code of conduct issue, but it doesn't have to. And one of the things this team is working on are ways to, help folks who are coming in see that this is a friendly, supportive, wonderful place, and also to provide tools and resources to mitigate and issues, before they get to the point where, they're spilling over and, causing pain for a lot of people. So before I move on, do we have questions or anything else to add?
I did want to add, if there are other ways to contribute as well. We have the community health issue queues where we ask for feedback from the community. So a lot of times we're trying to think of ways or things to implement, and community feedback is super important for us. So that would be a great way to also contribute and come back to us.
All right.
Thank you. I'm trying to find the question, Batty.
I am seeing the chat. It looks like Batty says we've already answered it. So with that, I'm gonna move next to our next slide. So yeah, so we talked a lot about kind of what we do in terms of talking about who we are, but just to provide that sort of list, right? Of the different things that we do, right? So the conflict resolution team helps resolve conflicts between community members. Those conflicts take all kinds of different shapes. They happen in all different kinds of spaces. And again, one of the things about the Drupal community is, because we're not a terribly centralized project, there are a lot of different spaces in our community. And whether it's the community Slack group, whether it's a Drupal camp, and the Drupal camps are all run independently by members of their local communities. Whether it's something that Alex is very active maintaining the community Facebook group. There are so many, and then of course just interactions between community members on social media. There are a myriad of places where conflicts can arise, and while we are not in a position to police those spaces, what what we can do is act as a resource to help address conflicts when they arise, when we're made aware of them, and and if they are conflicts that require someone to take a time off, or whatever it is, we're also equipped to to address that, right? So that kind of gets into the upholding the Drupal Code of Conduct, which, and I'll talk a little bit about this later. We have a code of conduct that's been in place since 2010. It was last, I think, updated in 2014. So, one of the things we're working on is sort of bringing that code of conduct more up to date with current sort of best practices and open source codes of conduct. But that is something that we're responsible for helping, when there are things that come up, helping make sure that folks are following that. We also, although the values and principles are not necessarily as binding on the community as a large, that's also something we'll use to kind of inform, how we go through and how we review issues. Aaron Winborn Award is something we do once a year. This is one of my favorite things that we do. So what we do is we ask the community to nominate others for their leadership in the community, and it is absolutely, like, as one of the folks who gets to see all the entries, it's so wonderful to see all the different ways that people are helping make the community a better place, whether it's in their local communities or whether it's in the broader community at large. And so every year, sort of around the beginning of the year, we in the spring we solicit nominations, and then those nominations are voted on. Oh yeah, we haven't put Batty's photo up. Batty should be on this slide. Sorry. We actually wrote this slide just before you received your award, and we have not updated it since. So we'll get to that for next time. But as I was saying, so we have, so what we do is we take these nominations, and then the folks who review them are the 4 members of the conflict resolution team, plus every past recipient of the Aaron Winborn Award. So I think we're up to a group of 10 people who are reviewing these. Take a vote, and then the winner's recognized at the North American DrupalCon, and every year gets an award. The first couple of years we kind of started out with sort of store-bought awards, and then for the last couple of years we've had community members who have volunteered to handcraft awards. Rachel Lawson made the award a couple of years, and then who was it who made this year's beautiful wooden award, Mike?
Bo Shipley.
Oh, it's Bo Shipley, yeah. So so that's another reason I want to make sure we get that up there, is that it's a really, really gorgeous award. All right. So the next item is providing resource consultation advice to the community. Again, this is a lot of the work in terms of the resources that the community health team does. Consultation and advice. Sometimes we have people reach out to us who are like, look, I don't have an issue that I want to report. I just need some help dealing with this situation. And so, we're here to be that sounding board. That's something that we like doing, and we're available for the sharing experiences and best practices with open source projects. We occasionally talk with folks from other open source projects. I'm actually going to be doing a conference in February, FOSS Backstage, where I'm going to talk about some of the thornier kinds of issues that we've come up against that there are no clear answers for, and hopefully it'll spark some conversation between other folks, and maybe they found ways to address those things. And all of this is another way of saying it's like we do whatever we can do to help improve the overall health of the community. So I'm going to jump real quick to the next slide. So in terms of very specifically what we have been up to lately, right? So we've talked about this expansion, the creation of this community health team. And once again, I wanted to make sure we had this graphic up here to help folks understand who has access, to what, who's responsible for what. So that conflict resolution team, we're the folks who receive the incident reports. We're the only ones who receive them, and we can bring folks in. Again, I talked about the subject matter experts. If we need help with cultural issues or language, or a specific area of expertise that is just sort of not something we possess in our group, we can bring those folks in on an as-needed basis to provide assistance, but that's a transparent process, and again, we're not sharing private information. The community health team, that's that community health, event support, ambassadors. Those folks are not brought in on issues. They really are there to focus on those things that help make the community a happier and healthier place. Other very specific things we've been up to. Our Drupal Community Code of Conduct. This has been a long-standing thing. I think we've known for about 3 years now that we've needed to review and update our Community Code of Conduct, which is currently based on a very old version of Ubuntu's Code of Conduct. We were one of the very first open source communities of our size to have a Community Code of Conduct, which is awesome. But it is old and it needs some updating. So there's a handful of us on the community health team who are starting to figure out how we might tackle that. One thing that's really clear is that we want to make sure we have broader community involvement as well. So my hope is that we can tackle that in the next few months. The community working group is responsible for maintaining the code of conduct, so any changes or updates that need to be made are something that we do, but we also know that we need to have the buy-in of the community before doing so. Someone else want to talk about the blog posts we've been working on?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Sure. And this is more from the community health side of things. I believe Amy June Heinlein took the lead on both of these that are listed here. But as we, see things happening in the community, or even outside the community in this case, we have, we've kind of put our heads together and written things that we hope will help some folks in the community as far as resources. So that's what these 2 blog posts are. Can I just keep on going, George, and talk about the other stuff?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. You want to take this slide? I'm all good with that.
That's fine. The other thing we've been working on, and we hope that in 2021 to kind of make this in like an ongoing thing, is workshops for community members. And we've been doing the Code of Conduct contact training workshop, partnering with OtterTech. We've done that. I don't even remember. Did that start in 2019? I know we've been doing it most of 2020. I think maybe it started last year.
Yeah, I think we started at the end of 2019. And
right, okay.
So that I will jump in on this one.
Yeah.
This is to address that thing. It's like every camp and event has a code of conduct, but they don't always know how to enforce it, right? And so we thought it was really important for folks to go through some sort of training. Sage Sharp at OtterTech offers some really fantastic hands-on training. When I went through it, I was like, "Ooh, these are good problems." And so we offer that periodically. It's I think once every couple months or so. And now, are we taking registrations for the next sessions right now? Yeah. So please sign up. Our goal is to have every single Drupal camp have someone on hand who's gone through this training and knows how to handle issues. Because we have seen what happens when folks don't know how to handle issues and they get escalated to us. And if you can deal with them, they're on site within the context of your event, it's going to be way, way better. All right, I'll shut up again.
No, I also think it's a great resource to have if you're an organizer. Even if you're not necessarily going to participate in the code of conduct enforcement, just to know what these things are like, things to look for. It's just a great resource to have and to have experience.
All right, very good. Let me wrap up this slide. So our goal for 2021 is definitely to have a permanent kind of workshops, community health workshops page with ongoing workshops. We're working with the mental health first aid instructor out of Minneapolis to do that twice a year for our community. The code of conduct training happens almost monthly. We're looking to add possibly anti-oppression training, and we did a well-being hour with one of our subject matter experts, Dr. Michelle Dropkin.
Yeah.
When
and by the way,
first started.
Yeah. And you know what I'll say about that well-being hour? I still go back to the recording of that sometimes and the slides, because it was such a wonderful, wonderful, valuable resource for, just the day-to-day coping with some of what we have all been dealing with over the last year. And so whether you're in Drupal or anything aside, this is just like day-to-day, like here's how to think about things and here's how to cope. So even though we did that back in May, I think watching the recording is we did record it, and it's evergreen material.
The last two items on the list, we've talked about the code of conduct template and playbook that April Sides is now helping us maintain. And the other thing that a few of us have been working on is something that George alluded to called nudge templates, which are kind of pre-written comments that can be inserted into the issue queue when, for lack of a better phrase, things start going off the rails for one reason or another. So we have a small group of people. We meet every Monday. It's all being done out in the open. There's issues in the CWG issue queue for this. And we're getting ready here in the next few weeks to kind of announce this project with a blog post and kind of start a beta test of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, very exciting. All right. Anyone else have anything to add before I move on, I think, to our second to last slide? Okay. So yeah, what are we up to next? These are kind of longer term things as we look forward into 2021. We are working on setting up maybe some periodic community health calls from representatives from other open source communities. In the few ad hoc calls we've had and conversations we've had with folks, it is clear that in some ways the Drupal community is very battle tested in terms of some of the issues and things we've had to deal with. There are other kinds of issues that I know other communities have had to deal with that we haven't. And I think a longer term goal of this here would be to see a lot more information sharing and between projects, development of some sort of sustained and ongoing, resources that, all open source communities would have access to and be able to work with each other on. So that's very exciting. Proven documentation of the community health roles. We did create a good amount of introductory documentation to get our group up and running. But I think as we do grow and expand and evolve that group, that there's there's opportunities to define them more. Talked about additional community workshops. So there's, I think we talked about anti-oppression training, some sort of training that would essentially provide folks in the community with sort of a wider and broader understanding of various issues relating to, equity and justice and in our community. So we're actively looking for resources for those. We also understand that these issues play out often very differently in the United States than they do in other parts of the world. So if there are ways we can, help expand people's understanding of these issues, not just as they manifest in the United States, but also as they play out in other areas of the world. That's a resource that we want to make sure we provide. And then I had alluded to this earlier. So we are looking to add probably 1 to 2 members to the conflict resolution team over the next year. If this is something you're interested in, this is if you are, very specifically interested in the sort of conflict resolution work as opposed to just the community health work. It is a challenging job. It requires sort of a special set of skills, as they might say, but that's something we're really just kind of starting the search on right now. As Mike also alluded to, we are very, very much looking forward to expanding our team so that it is not just representative of, the United States, Great Britain, North America, Western Europe. We really want to make sure that we have a group that is much more representative of our truly global community. So, then we've got, how we keep the community up to date, how you can keep up with us, what's going on. So we have a Twitter account at Drupal Community where we share our public minutes. This is the conflict resolution team's minutes are shared via Google Doc. We'll also make other announcements about upcoming workshops and other things we have going on, opportunities for the community at large to participate in things. Thank you. The issue queue, where we will make sure that we're soliciting if we've got a question or an issue that we want folks to weigh in on. We'll have that there. Occasionally, we do issue public statements regarding issues of importance to the broader community. This is if there's some sort of issue that has come up that has had a really big impact on the community. We haven't had to issue one of these in a while, but sometimes it's necessary. Annual-ish report on Drupal.org, and that is largely a distillation of this presentation that you have just watched. Basically, I think at this point it's largely making sure our pages are up to date. And also, we occasionally do go through and be like, okay, how many issues did we handle in the last year? I've got some other sort of things about sort of bigger picture issues that we see going on. And then, of course, presenting sessions at DrupalCon as well as other camps and events. So thank you for that reminder that we have 1 minute left. And so I think in that time we can take, whatever questions might be in the queue that folks have, or if anyone else on the panel has anything else they want to add. And I'm just going to say thank you, and I will be quiet.
Thank
Well, I
you,
think
George.
we've been doing a pretty good job of answering questions in both the chat and in the Q&A. So I think we're all caught up there. I've just been sitting back watching that. So.
I mean, I suspect that there may be folks who have questions that they may not want to ask in a public forum. And Drupal-CWG at Drupal.org is a really good way to reach out to us, privately via email. Again, that address only goes to the 4 of us. And I will actually post that here. There's CWG at Drupal.org. And yeah, if you want to, reach out to us, we're also, most of us are active in the Drupal community Slack, and you can ping us there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we get to figure out, does it just end? Because we have another timer on our screen now. I don't know if you all can see this, but this is very time extended. What? We're in overtime now.
Extra time.
Oh, end of presentation. That's what I need to press. Thank you all so long.